A local teen is hoping to inspire transgender youth by speaking publicly about her transition.
15-year-old Lily Rubenstein was born a boy, but now lives openly as a girl. Lily came out as transgender to her parents when she was 12 years old. And joining us now is Lily and Dr. Johanna Olson. She's the medical director for the Center for Trans Youth Health and Development at Children's Hospital in Los Angeles. Thanks for coming up.
Thank you for inviting me.
15 years old. It's quite remarkable. Hard enough for someone to come out. How has this part of the journey been for you, being here on TV and telling your story so publicly?
It's really great. I'm proud to be able to represent the trans community and be able to let people know that you shouldn't be afraid to come out, and that there's people who will support you, and that there's other people like you. And so it's really great to be able to have this opportunity to be here today.
And how has the reaction been?
From classmates, it's been really great. I actually recently gave a poem about being trans, and that's how I came out to my whole entire class. And I've received nothing but support. And my parents have been so supportive, and just the whole community has been very just overall supportive, accepting, understanding, willing to learn. And I think that's just a great thing. I
mean, you were 12 years old when you told them that you wanted to make this transition. At what age did you know, and what was that like at such a young age to be able to tell your parents? I heard your parents really didn't have any idea that you were dealing with these issues.
Well, I remember I was in preschool, and it was like the end of the year, and we were graduating, and they had a whole bunch of stuffed animals lined up, and they had a line for the boys and a line for the girls, and the boys one had robots, rocket ships, stuff like that, and then the girls line had Barbie, Raggedy Ann dolls, stuff like that. And I could remember being in the boys line, and I didn't fit in there. I always talked to the girls, and I always did the things that they did. And so I remember, as I got close to the line, I switched over and I got some weird looks from the teacher, but I came home with my Raggedy Ann doll. So.
Good for you.
So that young,
yeah,
you knew that you felt like you were in the wrong place.
Right, I did. I think as I got older, I suppressed it in a way. I didn't know that there was a terminology like transgender. I didn't know that there were other people like me. I just didn't know. I thought oh my God, I'm weird. I thought that, I didn't know. And so I suppressed that. I did sports, guy sports. I hung out with guys, and I just tried to suppress it. And then I remember I was about 11 years old, and I was on the watching TV. I was flipping through the channels, and I went on the news, and it said, transgender person, something. And so I, went on the computer, and I looked up transgender, and I'm like, oh my God, this is me. Wow. This is how I've been feeling. And it felt so amazing to be able to finally put a word to it.
Wow.
It's interesting, Dr. Olson, because as we told people here, and even in this newsroom, that we were going to have a 15-year-old trans youth on the show, some people still kind of don't understand this, especially hearing you have someone who's 15 years old or 12 years old, and in the case of Children's Hospital, you say there's a 4-year-old that goes through this, and many wonder, is this just a phase? It's still something that people seem to wrestle with.
I think a lot of people don't understand that trans adults start as trans kids. And so there's a misperception that there isn't gender consolidation or an understanding of your gender until you're much older. But actually, if you think about that for someone who's not transgender, the experience of knowing your gender is pretty obvious. You knew that you were male or female before you were 18 or 25 or 40 or whenever it is that people think you should know your gender. We actually know our genders at a very young age. But what happens for people who are having a trans experience is that a lot of stuff from the outside comes in and causes them to question that or not understand it, or they don't have language exactly like Lily's story that she's telling us today. And it's not just one 4-year-old. I actually have a handful of young people in my practice that are under 8 years old.
In order for you to have 4-year-olds, though, in your practice, they must have parents that see their children struggling with something, right? I mean, what are the signs that parents bring their kids to you for? What does a 4-year-old express?
It's different from kid to kid, but a lot of kids will do exactly what Lily's talking about. They'll show an interest in things that might not be typically affiliated with their assigned gender. So maybe if you have an assigned male, a boy who likes to do girls' things, But then a lot of times, some of the difference is that some kids will actually state their gender, like I am this gender, if they are able to or they have the language. We don't really know why some children are able to articulate around their gender and some kids are not, and it takes them a little bit longer to come to that place.
Well, I mean, in your case, you were lucky enough to have supportive parents and people
Yes.
who supported you all the way.
Right.
But what if the parents are not there and you're young and the parents say, no, I'm not going to allow them to go through this kind of a treatment?
We know that young people who are not supported, as trans youth who are not supported, have a lot of negative health outcomes. They're at very high risk for experiencing homelessness. They're disproportionately represented in the group homes or in foster care or even in detention. We know that young people they're incredibly vulnerable to sort of poor coping and just very negative things, social isolation and HIV acquisition and a lot of negative things. Parental support is the #1 indicator of good outcome for any adolescent issue.
Lily, before we go, just one question for you. I mean, just to go through your journey is so brave, but what do you hope being public about it and telling people your story will do for others?
You know, as I said earlier, when I saw someone on the news and they talked about being trans, and I was like, that's it. I hope I can be that person to someone else. I hope I can be that person who says, you know, this person's brave enough to do this. I can do this. I can come out. I can feel comfortable in my own skin. And I hope I can be that person for someone.
I think you are.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for coming on.
Lily
Thank you, both of
Rubenstein,
you.
Dr. Olson, thank you so much.
You're welcome.